So I decided to make my first game in 10 days, and it ended up pretty well actually. Before we get into the video though, I just want to say thanks to everyone who listened to my remix of Viv's credit song for my death, which had about 4.3k views. And I didn't think it would get that much views, so thank you so much. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. The game jam I decided to enter was in the My First Game Jam Summer 2022. Also, the game jam technically spans about 2 weeks, but I'm just gonna do mine in 10 days. The jam had a theme of heal, and I didn't have any game ideas, so I decided to follow it. The game jam started at July 2nd at 3 PM, so I started to think about some game ideas. I wanted to keep the game simple, so after a while, I came up with an idea where you were a healer trapped in a dungeon and there were allies in the map that you need to heal so they can kill the enemies and escape the dungeon. Well, it was the initial idea. More on that later on. I started to work on the player's animations in the night's animation at 7:30 PM, and by 10:32 PM, I finished the player's animations and called it a day. I continued the night's animations and created a simple slime enemy with some animations for it, but it ended up getting unused later on. Then I exported them as spreadsheets, and that was pretty much all I did on day 2. On day 3, I spent over 3 hours making the tile set for my game, spent another 30 minutes making a door sprite and some wooden platform sprite, and then noticed that it just looked ugly because the tile set looks like a grass sprite with some stone textures, so I spent an additional 1 hour and 30 minutes to fix my tile set. From 3 PM to 6:30 PM, I created a spike trap sprite, added a torch and some animations for it. I also made the animations for the particle effect for the healing animation. I then created the player's basic components in Godot, set up the animations, and I added the tile set to my project. And now for my favorite part of game development, coding. Why? I don't know, it's just very rewarding, I guess, and satisfying. I began working on the player's basic movement, and after following some tutorials on YouTube, I implemented the player scripts and quickly made a test map for the player to move around in. And then I got to setting the player's animations to play when walking, jumping, idling, and healing, and this is probably the part where I struggled a lot. At first, everything seemed to be working fine until I got to this. The problem is, as soon as I walk, the walking animation will play, but if I stop walking, then it should return to the idle animation, but it doesn't, and it will only play the idle animation if the player is in a corner. I was like, huh? Then I took a good look at my code to see if I made some typos or errors, and there it was. I totally forgot to add another if statement that checks if the player is not moving, then plays the idle animation. I then tried using raycast to check if the player is in the ground. What is a raycast, you ask? Well, a raycast is an invisible ray that points in a specific direction with a defined length, and if it is hitting something, then you can do whatever you want with it. In my case, I want it so that if it hits the ground, then it will return true in my check is grounded function, and if it isn't, then it will return false. I initially used Godot's built-in function to check if the player is in the ground, but I changed it to raycast because why not? Then I added a healing animation, which just plays if the player is pressing the desired button for it, which actually worked, but I ran into some problems again, where it would play the heal animation, but as soon as I let go of the healing button, then the animation would go back to playing the idle animation, or the walking animation. Also, the jumping animation wasn't playing anymore. I didn't know why, but I really wanted to fix it. I wanted it so that it finishes the heal animation first before playing any other animations. Also, I forgot to add a jump counter, so this just happens. After messing with the code for a couple of minutes, I still couldn't fix the problem, so I closed the project. I found out about animation tree node, so I wanted to use it, because the animation player node alone was very unreliable, or maybe I'm just dumb. I started to redo my code, so after following a couple tutorials, I managed to get the movement working after stitching some bits of code from different tutorial videos together. I also added a camera that follows the player around. Then I found out about finite state machines. What the heck is a finite state machine, you ask? In order to understand what a state machine is, we first need to understand what a state is. Now, a state can be described as a possible status of a game system. Now that we know what states are, what is a finite state machine? A finite state machine is a mathematical model that determines which state a game system is in. For example, I have a finite state machine attached to the player in my game that has an idle, walking, jumping, and healing state. Since the player can only be in one state at a time, and there are a preset numbers of states available, the state machine is finite, meaning it is limited or restricted. And my finite state machine will act on input and transition to different states based on triggered responses. Using finite state machines, the game can react on the player's input and provide interactivity of gameplay. For instance, if we are on the ground and not moving, then the finite state machine will determine that we are in the idle state. Same goes for walking, jumping, and healing states. So I untangled my code and put them in the functions that my finite state machine can call. And after a while, it worked. I quickly added the healing state and a variable that counts how many times I executed the healing skill. I put some debug text above the player to see which states we are currently in the game, and voila, it works. Then I wanted to make the music for my game, but I didn't know what type of music I wanted it to be, so I researched for a while and decided I would be going for a fantasy vibe for my music. I quickly downloaded the RuneScape sound font and finished this as my main menu track. And yes, I made this on my phone, and this is the software I use to make my tracks. I'm planning on making my future tracks on PC soon, so I'm pretty excited about that. On day 6, I started by finalizing the main menu track for my game. And then I created another track and finished it by 1:21 PM. And at 1:34 PM, I quickly thought about the game's title and created a title screen, some UI elements, made some sound effects from JFXR, found some fonts from thefont.com, and imported them all in my project. Then I started to create the main menu screen, added the music and sound effects, then made a mutable, a custom cursor, then I added some test levels, then I made it so that you can transition from the main menu screen to the first test level scene, and from the first test level scene into the second test level. And I was pretty happy with what I got so far, so I called it a day. For day 7, I created another track for the levels, created a button for going back to the menu screen, added the allies AI and behavior, implemented the mana's HUD system, and I initially used 3 sprites that just hides itself whenever the skill count goes down, but it led to a new problem where the sprites won't unhide themselves when the skill count goes up. So I really wanted to fix that, but I left it there for now because I had to do some research to find out a way to fix the problem. Also, remember the initial idea of the game? Well, you're going down the dungeon now and there are no enemies, just spikes, and you only need to save the allies to win the game. I created a simple tutorial map to get the player familiar with the control scheme, made the mana potion pickups, and after I did some research, I came across textured progress bars. I then quickly made some global variables that any code or script would be able to access, and then coded the logic for my mana system. And boom, it works! After that, I added a retry button, added the spikes and made it so that when the player collides with the spikes, then the player won't be able to move anymore. And added the death text, created a light scene that I can put in any map I want. Then I made some animated particles for the ally when he healed, and made the player's blood particles using Godot's particle system, and there we go. For day 9, I made the first level of the game, then I added keys, a script that counts and checks if there are no keys or allies left in the map, and a door. Then I made it so that when you collected all the keys and all of the allies in the map is healed, then the door opens and you can go through it, then it changes to the next level, even though I haven't even made the second level yet. Then I added a briefing scene, and I was pretty satisfied with what I've done for the day, and decided to take a break. Then I remembered that I'm only making my game for 10 days, and I saw that I only had 14 hours left to finish the game, so I made some level sketches and decided to hit the sack. I woke up pretty early at dawn, so I started to work on the levels. I exported the game, then made the game's page with a couple of hours left, and I finally finished it. If you want to play my game, then the link's in the description. I only made 5 levels so far, so it's a pretty short game. And if you want to listen to the game's tracks, then it is also in the description. If you made it this far in the video, then thank you for watching. I really worked hard on making this video, and just simply subbing will definitely be a lot of help. The game I made isn't perfect, and I think it needs some more polish, but I think it's pretty decent as my first game. Massive thanks to PigDev, GDQuest, Game Endeavor, and November Dev, because without them, this video wouldn't even be possible to make. I'm still learning about game development, and I'm just starting small for now because I don't want to start projects that's too ambitious and end up not finishing it, but I'm excited to see what kinds of games I'll make in the future. So once again, thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.